everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Long Box Sessions. I am your host, Alex Dandino.
And I'm Josh Griffey.
As always, catch us on all your socials. Catch us on all of your podcast apps, wherever you might find us. And please, rate, review, and subscribe. Tell a friend. We're friends. I mean, you know, we could be friends with anybody. Could happen.
For sure, guys. Make sure, check us out on YouTube. You can actually see our faces now. Nerd Alchemist, that's plural with an S at the end. We've got some new content coming, some different things we're going to be trying throughout the year. You can find the Long Box Sessions there, and our other podcast, The Film Alchemist. So we're doing all that over there now. Go check me out on my other YouTube channel, Nick Hall Comedy, man. We're everywhere. There's so much content of our faces on the internet.
A lot of stuff going on. Yeah, a lot of stuff happened this week. Griffey, there was a Batman reveal that Matt Reeves showed up.
Batman. Yeah, dude.
Did you enjoy that?
Oh, yeah, man. Just whipping out a little titillation in the middle of the week. Yeah. I don't know. People were doing this. What's the point of this? I was like, I don't know. It's Batman. Like, just I remember when the Joker did the same thing, right? I feel like the camera test is going to be a new thing. You see an actor, you see him in the thing. Yeah. I mean,
I remember that first the Joketo image came out. I texted you immediately. I'm like, did you see that shit? And like completely out of context, I was like, okay, whatever, you know. And then you were immediately like, no, fuck that.
Yeah, the Joketo image is burned in my mind. I'll never forget the first time I saw it. The same way that when we were in third grade, I went to a birthday party for my friend Daniel Mobley. And his grandmother thought she was renting us Flash Gordon, but instead rented us Flesh Gordon, the pornography version, Flesh Gordon. Yes. And we're just in third grade. Yes. We just finished swimming, so we're all soaked, sitting there just crushing cookies and fruit roll-ups, just being like, oh, tits. Oh, there's a giant monster his body's a scrotum, and his head is a dick who gets caught in a ring and ejaculates Flesh Gordon down a hill. I was like, oh, cool. Like, I'm in third grade. I'll just it's all different from here. There was me before Flesh Gordon and me after. The Joketo image, very much the same. I don't know, man. I thought it was interesting to see the suit. I think it looks good. It looks a little more tech-oriented, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is inevitably what I think I heard people making, like, the Arkham Asylum comparison, right? The kind of video game suit. I think this Batman particularly is going to go more the way of like a James Bond, right? We're going to have a little more gadgets, a little more tactical, because this is the thing. I don't care how much the budget is. You will never be able to convince an audience that Robert Pattinson can beat someone up in a fist fight. So there's going to have to be some movie magic involved. But, you know, I was like, his chin looks fine. The suit looks like Batman. There was this cool wrinkle they added to the suit potentially, that they think the bat symbol is actually made of the gun that killed his parents. I think that is fascinating if that's the case.
That is interesting. I'm intrigued.
It is weird that like so every time he blows up a suit, he's like, "Can you just save those two pieces? Hold on a second. You know, Darkseid, I know you're gonna Omega beam me, but just not this one sentimental keepsake that's on my teats."
You know, the more I looked at it, the more, I got the Arkham Asylum vibe. I had read earlier that Matt Reeves and the production team were mainly basing it on that Brian Azzarello look that he has in the Damned book, the Black Label book that you bought me.
Yeah,
with the Batawang.
I mean, that's the thing. He looked like Batman. That's all you want. Yeah, it looks cool.
Exactly. What else? I'm not sure. Like, it's a camera test. I'm not sure what else you guys can really. Yeah. Sorry if I sound stuffed up, by the way, guys. I am battling through some coldness. But nevertheless, the pod must go
Batman
on.
Lost his parent and fights crime. You fight sniffles. It's all very comparable. This is the podcast of heroes.
But I did the amount of people that just like immediately jumped on it. Like, here's the thing. I reposted it to the pod Twitter and the Facebook group. Was like, what do you guys think? Almost immediately, there was like a cabal of people who were just like, nope, out of here. I don't think so. That is not my Batman. I'm like, you haven't even seen the movie yet, guys. Let's pump the brakes quick here.
Robert Pattinson is a hard sell to a lot. Because, again, he'll always be tarred by he's the Twilight Twinkle vampire.
Sure.
Everyone's just taking out the account that he's been in a ton of great movies since then. He's a very talented actor.
A ton of great movies.
But again, there are just people that will have a hard time believing that Batman, the guy with no superpowers, who essentially has always said, right, Batman is an Olympic-level athlete in a ton of different Olympic-level physical fitness tests. Because with no powers, he has to beat a lot of ass. Like, if Batman's going to beat up 30 guys, you have to be pretty badass.
Right.
And it's just hard to imagine Robert Pattinson being that guy.
Well, not only that, though, like, I think about the other Batmans we've had.
Yeah.
Think about their illustrious film histories. Like, if Christian Bale had never done American Psycho, he would have literally been, oh, the guy from the Newsies? Interesting choice.
Batman sells papes.
Batman sells papes, guys. Like,
that is if there's one superhero that understands how to sell papes, it's Batman. He is a master of brand awareness. Batman, look, he doesn't say I'm Batman. He says I am the headline.
Right. If you look at superheroes, if you think about superhero Instagrams, the one guy who's going to be an influencer before anyone is Batman. 100%.
Right. Well, it's so funny too because the Robert Pattinson looking completely unable to kick ass, I think makes sense. Like, I agree. I cannot fathom that Robert Pattinson could run around beating people's asses like Batman. But to be fair, I don't believe Adam West could beat someone's ass. Michael Keaton, not a huge guy, but he's got a craziness factor, so maybe him. I don't believe Val Kilmer and George Clooney can kick people's asses.
The only person I believed could kick ass was Batfleck.
Yeah, Batfleck, and anyone who has the voice of Kevin Conroy, you're like, he sounds like he could beat some ass. Then you see Kevin Conroy, and you're like, more of a scarecrow in life, but vocally sounds like an ass whipper. You know what I mean?
Right, for sure. Absolutely.
There is some movie magic, right? Christian Bale looked like he could whoop some ass in those movies. But honestly, if that's the biggest thing that is wrong with Batman when this movie comes out, there's a chance it'll be the best Batman movie of all time. Like, we all just need to hope that this team, they have a really great cast assembled, a great director. Let's see what the new Batman's like, man. I'm really excited for it. I'm totally on team Robert Pattinson. I was totally on team Batfleck. I don't know. I'm excited for it, man. I'm very biased when it comes to Batman. I'm just excited.
I'm actually just really excited because I think I'm a firm believer in getting it out there in front of people, showing people immediately so that the shock value wears off is what I love the most. Like, they did that with Heath Ledger's Joker. Like, you saw him pretty early on in the process of like what he was going to look like. So then when we got to the movie, all we were focusing on was the performance. And I think that's exactly what they're doing with Pattinson too, which is like, yes, this is the Twilight guy. He's going to be Batman. Right. Here's what he looks like. Let's focus on the rest of it, please.
Well, people forget about Heath Ledger was not universally like, oh, he'll make a great Joker. People are like, what the fuck? Did bro from Knight's Tale?
Oh my God, people freaked out.
Yeah,
I remember just
to be fair, I remember being the same thing. I'm like,
what are they thinking?
Well, you're just like, that's the fucking guy. There were so many other guys at the time. You're like, well, there are all these actors that are great villains, sure. And then you're like, oh, now he just looks like some guy dressed as the Joker at Burning Man. Oh, okay, like, all right, maybe. And it just worked out. And this is, I mean, your point is pretty valid, right? That what this is now is it's all of this stuff, right? The comic book properties and whatever have become this version of a blood sport where everyone's just excited to get there. This is why it's not Batman takeout. This is why it's not the Joker takeout. Like, everyone just wants to shit on everything to prove that they're smarter and better and more in love with comics and everything.
Right.
And yes, I understand the irony of me saying that on this podcast. That's fine. But I think to your point,
we
though,
don't try to do that. We're not people who are just early. Like, oh, we're the best.
Start it early. Get it out there. Let people settle with it. And this is what's going to happen. All of this won't matter if that movie comes out and kicks ass. It won't matter.
You came up with an idea that I wanted to talk about because I actually really like this idea. The cults. You texted me. You were like, what do you think about superhero cults? And because I thought about this when we were watching when I saw all the reactions to the Pattinson stuff, I was like, this is just like a group of people who just so desperately want to hate Robert Pattinson, but they're all Batman people. But give me the rundown, because all you said were cults. So I was like, cool, and I started writing ideas. So tell me what your idea was.
My theory was, right, I'm always fascinated by cults and weird stuff. I've been doing some research, for a project I'm writing. And it got me thinking about people that are cult leaders and this and that. And I was like, if you actually think about what it would be like if superheroes were introduced to our world, right? It would immediately shatter so many norms. You know, the same way they say if an alien arrived. Let's say the dropship came down, right? Like the day the Earth stood still. It's like, what's up? We're here from, Xylon B or whatever the planet name is. We've got 8 tentacles for dicks. You know what I mean? Our babies are born from our ear canals. What's up? We're here to party. We traveled from way far away. We have laser guns. People will be like, what the fuck? And I talked about this before on other podcasts, but I was like, if that happened, you would not find people who would wake up the next day and you're like, you know what's important? Mowing my lawn. Like, little tasks, right? Little things that we just do would be thrown out the window. You would immediately be, holy shit, the things have changed. And I used to think that religions would disappear, but the older I've gotten, I was like, I think if aliens showed up, I think membership for religions would go through the roof. I personally would be like, well, that's nonsense. But I think people would desperately be trying to find something to cling to that reminds them of the way things were, right? So I think all of a sudden Christian churches and, all these churches would be lit, right? People would be like, help, save us from the 8 tentacle dick things. Like, I want to go back, And this got me thinking, though, about cults and these rise of new religions and this and that, right? So a cult, by definition, a system of religious veneration and devotion directed toward a particular figure or object, right? So we all know some famous cults, right? Heaven's Gate, things like this. But I was thinking about this, right? So take the aliens out. If you saw the first news clip ever of Superman, everything in our lives would change, right? And next thing you know, there's more and more heroes, right? Maybe this was part of, I've been watching My Hero Academia a lot with the kid, and a lot of this talks about superheroes don't just arrive as like the very few, but almost every single person's born with a quirk, as they call it, right? So like some people have silly quirks, some people are really strong, so they get to be pro heroes. But like everyone, like the barista at Starbucks probably has a superpower, as it were. So let's imagine that's the world. Some of these people would inevitably become cult leaders.
Right, totally.
Right? They would be more fascinating. So my theory to you was, let's make a list. Each of us do 3 entries. Who do you think would make the most fascinating cult leaders in the comic book world? Why don't you start us off? Just tell us, all right, so you are Alex Dandino. You're shopping around, right, for a cult to join. Who would draw your interest, and what kind of belief or reason would you have for joining said cult?
I'm going to tell you the first person I thought of when you came with this idea was Booster Gold.
All right. Really? Why Booster Gold? Walk me through. There's time travel.
Now, not me particularly, but so it's a man traveling back from the future where he's like, not just like a superhero, but like a fucking celebrity superhero.
Right.
Which fits in perfectly with our times.
That's true.
So, like, this is the kind of guy who literally shows up and, like, automatically gets a holding deal over at CBS, So
they're like, we have to trick people into paying for this app. If Picard can't do it, we need you, Booster.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Booster Gold's like the perfect example of gathering money through freemium,
right?
But to me, like what Booster Gold means to people is a brighter future. He's a very happy guy. Sure. He's happy-go-lucky. He's got skeet. He's all sunshine and rainbows for the future. He's a futurist. Right. So to me, Booster Gold's cult is like a group of futurists who all wish to be reality stars. That's like their thing.
Wow.
Is they want to
Okay.
be. They see the glitz and glamour of the future, so they want to be that. They want to find a way to become the future. To become the future on TV. That's
Booster
really what
Gold is the
basically
harbinger.
all
Yeah,
of
Booster
Hollywood.
Gold becomes the harbinger of Instagram's future. Like, we're all just going to be stories someday.
Basically, Booster Gold becomes YouTube. Oh, see, this is this Donald Trump thing. Booster Gold becomes YouTube TV.
Oh, lordy.
That's really what this
nice.
is.
Okay, that's fascinating. Yeah. I can see how people would be drawn to.
Also, all followers get a skeet.
Well, this is the other weird thing is Booster Gold would be interesting because if he remained in our time with the cult, people would begin to wonder if the time travel part was real, right? Because if time travel exists, there becomes so many giant questions.
There's a big question there
for Booster Gold, which would lead to a religious fanaticism, you would imagine. He, by his very presence, means that there is a future that's okay, but it's not okay enough that he didn't come back. Whoa. Yeah, there's a lot.
He brings this futurist perspective of look how great things are in the future. So why don't we try to start now? But by doing that and being who he is, which is sort of this harbinger of like, because Booster Gold's also a little bit of a glory hog. He literally has a camera following him all the time in Skeet. So when you think about it, Booster Gold is, yes, a vision of a brighter future, but also a harbinger of what I would call considerable doom. So.
Fascinating. That's more optimistic than mine. I feel like mine are skewing the wrong way. Because the first cult I imagined.
That's all right. This is the happiest one I came up with.
Mine is based in comic book world, but it's not based on superheroes. But what if there was a cult of Black Hole, right? The Charles Burton book, where essentially teens start fucking, and next thing you know, they have all these little deformities, tails, and like mouths for nipples, things like that.
Right.
I think in today's world, right? Let's say there was a fast-spreading, sexually transmitted disease where all of a sudden it starts fucking up all of our bodies. I could see this forming a Cthulhu-like cult, right? One,
Sorry, I'm sorry. Are you not reading the news? Coronavirus. You're welcome. Jeez, didn't you already?
I'm not afraid of that pussy-ass coronavirus. I want the black hole disease, right? I want to look down and my nipple's just like, what's up, Josh? Like, really? You're watching Frasier again. You know what I mean? So then it can start badmouth. My own body is shaming me. That's trippy headspace. But imagine all of a sudden, right? Like whoever your figurehead becomes. Let's say if we're going to make it like a body shaming thing, the Blob. The Blob gets laid and all of a sudden he's like the head of black hole. But just imagine a cult where all of a sudden we're all gathered in this like swampy marshland, right? Like in the Call of Cthulhu. And all of a sudden we're just like, hey, what's wrong with your body? Oh, yeah, And we start having this, why is this happening to us? What does the black hole mean for us? Is this the step in evolution, right? Because in theory, all evolution is fueled by fucking, right? We just keep fucking, and our, genetic steel sharpens genetic steel, as it were. But now all of a sudden we're fucking, we're getting these weird mutations. We don't look the way we want to look, and we're confronting all of this, and you're breaking down these barriers of this is the ideal version of man. And now we're all these imperfect pieces of art.
This is good.
I could definitely see a cult forming around the black hole. What is it? That would be the thing.
Well, essentially that's good, though. What you're doing is really what this is it's less of a cult revolving around the black hole, but what you're doing is really normalizing the grotesque.
Right, but that's the black hole becomes the harbinger for breaking the world as we know it. Right? In your future with your Booster Gold cult is all about, get the bright, flashy outfits, get the floating camera. We're going to go out. We're going to get some likes and some hearts, and that's how we'll validate our existence. Whereas me and the other chuds will be in the swamp being like, what is man? What have I become? We'll just be out there having a fucking freak fest. All of a sudden, we'll all just look like a Clive Barker novel. You know what I mean? That's my cult.
Right. Well, there's always got to be like the Doc Shaner to the Bernie Wrightson, like those two separate looks and views of the world.
But that's the thing, right? What is a cult except for, hey, person who feels like they're not okay in today's world? We have the thing that lets you know that everything as it is wrong, and we're the only ones that can see that. the black hole virus or disease, whatever it is in that book, becomes a perfect conduit to form a cult around. Right? All of a sudden, the black hole becomes the hand of some mischievous higher power pulling us chosen ones, right? With the, deformities away from society. So that was my first guess. What do you have for number 2?
That's good. I really want this episode to be titled "Griffey's Nipples Watch Frasier," but that might not work.
They do.
But nevertheless, my second. So I actually wrote out this. I concocted this scenario. I've been working on a story a long time actually, and about like transhumanists and about the singularity and so on and so forth. But I could never quite crack it. But then I was thinking about the way this cult thing works, and there are people who believe in the vision of technology of the future, like how it will help us, how it will create a better society. So I was thinking about the like sort of division we have of like Ultron and the Vision, like the Vision born out of Ultron's malice towards humanity. So like the Visionists, so to speak, are these transhumanists who believe and the future lies in the teachings of what they see as the synthezoids' belief that humanity can rise above the flesh to become greater than they are, but not necessarily forsake their humanity in and of itself. They're rivaled by the Ultranites, who believe that their guidance to the singularity, the only way, they have to become the singularity to stave off annihilation. So it's like the Visionists would believe that transhumanism carries the world on in memory of because the world's going to shit anyways. Like we're all going to boil alive. It's fine. But these Visionists want the world to carry on through their teachings of it's okay. Like technology can benefit our society and carry us forward. Whereas Ultranites are literally like, blow this motherfucker up. Like we got this. Like it. What we need is a Skynet reboot. That's really what this is.
So you have like a real Starbucks versus Pete's Coffee thing going here. Two little boutique visions of the future.
Ooh, wow, that was the most hipster analogy I think I've ever heard you use on this
That's not
pod.
hipster. That is commercial, real American coffee. Your wife used to work at a place that used like Bunsen beakers and shit, and put in seeds and stuff into coffee to be cooler and more expensive. That's the Ultranites.
They put seeds in the coffee?
I don't know. I was just saying what would be the weirdest thing. I have no idea what they did there. I just know they had to make each cup of coffee individually. That is not the future that us technologists want. To be fair, I did see the video this week about the guy punching the reclining lady seat on the airplane in front of him. I am 1,000,000% an Ultranist at this point. Like, I just want us all to become part of a machine. Take out all the fucking buttholes that are like individually a problem for our species. Hatred. I would be an Ultranite.
Right, totally.
I would be an Ultranite for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so see, my second one, you're going more about, which makes sense. It's kind of the inevitable future we face, which is technology's coming or whatever. My way of thinking is I think people would be drawn back to the old ways. So what I would do...
I knew you were going to do
No,
this.
it would be the Cult of Fables, right? So the comic book Fables, the building in New York that they have, that is their home world here, right? Or the farm in upstate New York might be better. But this is their home world here, right?
Right.
So you have all of these diverse members of this, magical lands, right? That have now connected to our land. And somehow derive their power directly from us, right? So that's a really convincing hook to bring in cult followers, right? Is that we exist and have our very powers, right? Because of your belief, right? It's a perfect pitch. Sure. And then what you do is you have the cult members constantly running through this cycle of, oh, here is Pinocchio. Go with Pinocchio and learn today's cult a lesson, right? You're going to learn the lesson of the cult with Pinocchio about what it is to be a real human, a real boy, right? Or here, go with your teacher, Bigby Wolf, and learn of the inner darkness and beast within man, right? So all of these fables that were meant to teach us rules as kids, taught to us by magical beings that live in our world but have access to another world, and derive their power from our beliefs,
Right.
it's a perfectly set up cult. It's a perfectly set up cult system. Is my theory. Fables.
I mean,
people
granted,
will
it
want
exists.
to
It's
run
called,
to magical.
It's called Christianity, but you know,
Christianity wishes it had stories like Bigby Wolf, Baba Yaga, Pinocchio.
I've read the Bible. They're all in there.
Your Bible's way more lit than mine ever was. No, but that's what I mean. I think the appeal of
No, I see
going
what you're
to
saying, though.
magical
It's-
thinking in a fairy tale world would be ultra appealing to people who now can see a man lift a building, fly through the sky, right? Create constructs with a space police ring. I think he'd be like, yeah, dude, I'd rather just go hang out with Snow White. I think people would do that.
Sure, I totally see that. Well, I mean, it's the simplest and also like most attainable version of those stories, like of those parables and of those the meanings behind those stories. Like rather than complicate it with like people who are supposed to be heroic or meant to be heroic, why not just read a story about someone who it's the simplest good versus evil, because an intergalactic police force can seem a little more daunting and probably a little more complicated. It's much easier to just watch. Well, it's her and 7 dudes versus a bad lady. Cool.
Right.
Easy. Done.
The scale of the
Got it.
superhero existing would make us feel so small. And these fables
Absolutely.
seemingly are a fount of human knowledge and this and that, even though they're not. They're actual creatures that exist in another realm, and did we or did we not bring them here? I think that would be really fascinating.
Totally.
So what
Yeah,
do you
that's
have
good.
for number 3, your final cult that you would be interested in joining?
All right. I'm gonna say my runner-up because I was watching the news this week and I realized this would be perfect based on what I've seen in the news, because it feels like we're just like constantly dealing with people like politicians or whoever like totally missing the point. So like I can see a world where someone would read like Why the Last Man and be like, wow, this guy, poor guy, he's gonna have to dominate the female species.
Right. We've let them run
So
amok.
like I see just like a I see just like a cabal of men reading Why the Last Man and drawing the absolute wrong conclusion from it, and just like deciding like it's basically already happened. It's the neo-Nazis, but nevertheless, like that was my runner-up, the Lords of York. No, actually, I thought, because I was trying to figure out. Again, I stuck with mainly superheroes, but I was trying to think like who would I see Griffey following into?
Oh, Jesus.
And the easiest one was obviously Swamp Thing.
I knew
So,
this was coming, so I
my
tried
thought was
specifically to
pretty-
not do Swamp Thing.
Right, and I tried specifically not to do Swamp Thing, but it's just so
Yeah.
good. Like, I mean, it's perfectly hung as like eco terrorists following the lead of Swamp Thing and like taking back the world from like the military industrial complex. Like, it's absolute perfect symbiosis of the world and man again.
Right.
Like gathering in the forest and just simply it's getting back to Darwinism at its best rather than simply subverting Darwinism.
Well, imagine the magical...
I mean, that's pretty much all it is.
The magical thinking hit that would intoxicate people who think that way
Right.
is we are returning from the
Absolutely.
world of sin back to Eden. Right? Like there's that great book where Swamp Thing takes
Totally.
over Gotham and essentially just makes this fruit that gets everyone high as fuck. They're just walking around naked, happy as shit. And Swamp Thing essentially is to Batman like,
Right,
hey, I
right.
just solved Gotham in like one day. Good job, you fucking clown shoe child with emotional trauma. You know, like, Swamp Thing solves Gotham in a day. Right? It's like, just be naked and get high.
That's
and
actually-
it'll be great.
That storyline was exactly what I thought of when I was thinking this through. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the long and short of it. Like, I can see the entirety of Gotham, like, coming out of that trance being like, hey, Batman, what the fuck? Like, I was totally cool.
Yeah, no, the older I get, and especially the world we're heading to, right, I feel like things are not going to be great the next year or two. I would totally just go for, like, I'll just be naked and eat drug fruits in the swamp. Like, it's cool. We'll be fine. We'll
Yeah,
be
pretty
fine.
much.
It'll be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
It'll be great. All right, number 3. See, I struggled with this mightily. But I think if there was a superhero, right? So let me try to pin down a superhero. I think the superhero who would most draw a cult following, I would think someone like Deadman would be a really good choice, right? So someone who has existed beyond our world and essentially can come back and teach us what the adventure of death means to us as a living species. I think there's a lot of fascinating pull in that. And the idea of Deadman being able to inhabit the body of cult members, right? So Deadman could just have these wildly exciting Kool-Aid parties. You know what I mean? Where all of a sudden... It sounds harsh when you say it out loud like that.
That is not where I saw that
Well,
going.
I thought about it in my head. I was like, wow, damn. Like, imagine Jonestown, where all of a sudden you could get back up and be like, well, what did we learn from that experience? Right? Is Deadman inhabits your body,
yeah,
Boston Brand's like...
But I think, though, Deadman brings up an interesting point, and it's something that I'm not sure you mean to touch on, but, like, what it means is that Deadman confirms the afterlife.
But
completely.
But
like,
because he is still alive in an afterlife, it also teaches us that death can be kind of something that can be bargained with in a way. It's the classic, it's the Boris Becker, right? That book, Denial of Death. It's kind of everything we do in life is because we all are afraid that we're going to die and not matter, right? It's just a fact of reality, right? All the greatest people in history all kind of exist as cartoon characters in our head, right? It's not a big deal, right? Like, we all just come and go. Someone like Deadman can bring us a new way to look at that. And like you said, even if it's life after death, you know, heaven, hell, reincarnation, there is something, right? He is a harbinger that says whatever the plight of this plane is, there's just more going on.
I like the idea, though, that Deadman would go to Jonestown and be like, look what we all learned, so that in his cult, he's like, hey, guys, none of us are drinking Kool-Aid here, okay? Just to be clear.
He just finds the first rube. He's like, come, sheeple, drinketh of this Kool-Aid. It actually wasn't Kool-Aid brand, too. That's one of those things, poor Kool-Aid. Branding L, they're still taking to this day. But he does that, right? And the first guy drinks the poison or whatever. He goes down. Deadman inhabits his body, and he's like, fools, have I taught you nothing about death? Right? Gets them back in line, and all of a sudden they're like a cult of kickball. Strolls through a park with flowers, right? The Deadman
turns into that kid from...
He starts the cult of living. You know what I mean? Go out there, smell those flowers.
Deadman starts he turns into that kid from Canter Harley, like, nobody drink the beer has gone bad.
Sure, man. That guy. You know what I mean? I think
absolutely. Okay, I'm on board.
There's
with
a nice bit
totally.
of Deadman using the people that would choose to be lemmings as an example of like, guys, it's all here, man. Let's go get it. Let's get this life. Like, he's the guy who would invite you to be in like a hiking group on Facebook. Like, it's a good cult. He turns something evil and seemingly nefarious into a chance to live, right? Only through Deadman can we truly live. I think that would be an interesting one. He represents the biggest fear that our species faces.
True. That's a very good point. Yeah, I like that. Okay.
I think it could
I'm
work.
on board.
I think if you had one of the 6 we listed, right? If you could legitimately join one of said cults, which one would be most tempting to you?
Ooh, I think I'd probably end up joining the Deadman cult.
Yeah?
Because, quite frankly, having confirmation that there's life after death takes a lot of the piss out of it, but also I feel like I would probably want to live a lot more meaningfully.
Yeah, a part of me wants to say that I would do Fables, right,
so.
as a guy who, you know, fancies himself a storyteller and this and that. But if I'm really being honest with the audience, it's the Black Hole cult. I just want to get all deformed and have weird sex stuff until the apocalypse. Like, if we're being 100% honest with our audience.
You know, I feel like all the cults that I came up with, I wouldn't join. I'd just look at them and be like, oh boy, that's a problem. Like that's
Yeah.
all I'd think.
Well, I have
So,
very much that Groucho Marx quote has always really rung true with me is I don't want to be a part of any club that would
Absolutely.
have me. Right? Like I'm fully
100%.
I had a buddy once, this is just a funny aside, but we were in a bar years ago, and I look over at my friend who didn't have a ton of success with ladies, right? Not necessarily like a classic looker, as it were. And I looked over, and he was just talking to this really attractive woman. I was like, whoa, hey, way to go, man. How's it going? He's like, nothing. I told her to fuck off. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, she was a hooker. And I was like, did she proposition you? He's like, no. I'm like, well, then how the fuck did you just assume she was a hooker? And his response was, because she was attracted to me. And that's a little bit why I would never join a cult.
Well, that's that's sort of the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Yeah, I definitely all the groups I came up with were groups I would never want to be a part of.
Well, it's harder for us too now because if you're going to join a cult, we have to imagine which cult our kids would like. That's you're like maybe
Right,
the
exactly.
Fables cult. We could
I
do
don't
like the Three Little Pigs all the time and whatever. Well, that's pretty.
Right.
A lot of the Fables
The
have
Ultron
like this
Vision
dark
thing-
like underbelly of dead children, so that would be a bad one for parents to join.
Yeah. Well, I was like the Ultron Vision thing actually recrystallized itself for me today because I watched Alita Battle Angel and I was like, oh, I wouldn't want to do any of this. This all seems like it sucks.
Yeah,
Like,
not interested.
just- no, absolutely not. That's it, guys. We are culted up here, my friends. What cults would you come up with? What cult would you be a part of? What cult would you not be a part of? That's the real question.
Hit us up a
Or is
superhero
it?
or comic book cult that you would create based on one of those comic book properties. Tell us which one you would be
Absolutely.
down with.
I'm gonna ask Instagram as well. Which of our 6 cults you would be a part of? We'll see who triumphs.
Never underestimate the
in
way
any
people
sense.
just want to fuck the remaining days away. I'm telling you right now, I think Black Hole wins in a
pretty much.
landslide.
I like that
Landslide.
prediction. I actually think the Dead Man cult will win. As always, catch us on all your socials, all of your podcast apps. Guys, rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps our metrics. Our numbers are getting better, but they're not quite there yet, guys. We really, really need your help. I don't want to plead, but I would also implore you, tell a friend. We're good people. We'll hang out.
Help us out. Help us out.
Keep reading, keep writing, keep listening to the show. We love you. From the Long Box Sessions, I'm Alex Dandino.
And I'm Josh Griffey.